Hi everybody, it's Honest John again. It's amazing that you can be extremely rich and still be incredibly stupid. Now there are obvious examples of that, like Donald Trump or most of the Kardashian family. Some people would include Paris Hilton, but she actually is a very, very cagey lady who does a good job of playing stupid. Britney Spears is good looking and talented, but dumb as a post. But she's an entertainer. Nobody expects her to be a genius. But we expect businessmen to be smart. We expect our senators and representatives to be smart. Now, some of them are obviously pretty dumb. Michelle Bachmann and Louis Gohmert come to mind. But I was surprised to hear stories about businessmen and women who are making over $250,000 a year, who are thinking about ways of reducing their income to avoid higher tax rates, which appear to be on the horizon since Obama got reelected. Obviously, they have no clue how the tax system works, and neither do most of the Republicans in Congress. Let me explain this. Now, if the tax rates on the rich go up, the tax rates on that first $250,000 will stay the same. So if these people cut back their income to $250,000, all they're doing is making themselves less rich. And I know they don't want to do that because they'll only be paying higher tax rates on the money they make after $250,000. So if they make $250,000 and 50 bucks, they'll only be paying the higher tax rate on that $50. I think they can handle that. If you make millions of dollars, you'll still be paying the lower tax rate on your first $250,000. So when these guys in Congress get up and talk about class warfare, they obviously just have no idea how things are working. And that's understandable because they don't write the tax laws. They let the rich people write them for them. So they have no idea what's in them. Now, unfortunately, over the years, conservatives have taken a lot of the progressivity out of the tax code. And this, combined with their assaults on workers' rights, have contributed to the problem of increasing income inequality, our increasing deficit, and it has put a real brake on the economy. Corporate profits are at record highs, but they're still not hiring anybody. Worker productivity is the highest it's been in American history, but workers' wages are stagnant. They're not sharing in the profits that are being generated by their productivity. And the rich have a greater percentage of the wealth of this country than they've had since before the Great Depression. And obviously it's not helping the poor and the middle class. These problems are a direct result of conservative tax and economic policy. And the reason for this is because conservative economic policy is based on certain myths that have been proven to be false. Myth number one: government doesn't create jobs. It's a great soundbite. It's just not true. Government actually creates huge numbers of jobs. And I'm not just talking about people who work directly for the government. In addition to funding teachers and police and firemen and so forth, and highway projects, on and on and on. But those funds also support the businesses that support them. A well-funded police department, if it can hire some new officers, Well, they also have to buy guns, bullets, and uniforms for them, cars, helicopters, bulletproof vests. The money that comes from the government into the police department or the hospital or the construction site flows into the economy and creates jobs in other places. Ironically, the people who live in the red states are the biggest believers in the myth, even though they are the states that are most dependent on the federal government. Myth number 2, tax cuts for the rich create jobs and grow the economy. People with ideas and ambition create jobs, not necessarily people with money. Most rich people don't have any more ideas than the rest of us, so they just take the money and put it in banks, some of them overseas. The money is out of the economy. It's not flowing around. As a result, the guy with the ideas, he might not be able to get a subsidy or a loan to put his idea into practice and create jobs. Money needs to flow like blood. Myth number 3, tax cuts pay for themselves. They do not. That's why we're running big deficits. Now, tax cuts for the poor and the middle class might pay for themselves, but since the tax cuts for the rich have become so huge and everything has been skewed toward them, we can't possibly know, because there's no way that tax cuts for the poor and the middle class could make up the difference. And finally, myth number 4, if the rich are better off, we'll all be better off. Actually, the opposite is true. If the poor and the middle class are better off, even the rich are better off. The rich may own an ever-increasing percentage of the pie, but the pie is shrinking. So raising tax rates on the rich and using that money wisely to pay down our debt and subsidize startups would benefit everybody, and that includes the rich. That's why the measly little raise in taxes for the rich that is being proposed in the budget deal is a good first step. But it's nowhere near enough. We have to return progressivity to the tax code. The rates for the super rich must rise in steps to 65%. At the same time, the federal minimum wage should be a living wage. Conservatives always complain about people depending on the government, but they resist raising the minimum wage. That's just crazy. Every job should pay enough to live on. As far as fiscal and tax policy, conservatives have gotten everything they want since the Reagan administration. This experiment has gone on long enough. It's been proven to fail. If it were physics, we'd have blown up the lab. It's time to try something different. Thanks for listening.